Unreal Engine 5.7 just dropped and is packed with new features. Today, I'll show you how to create your very first game in it, step by step. We're going to be building Sky Balloon Freakout, a fast-paced game where you play as a balloon dodging jets and bullets trying to pop you. Along the way, you'll learn how to set up a simple character, create enemy AI, and build a high score system, and a lot more. And if you're brand new to Unreal Engine, make sure to check out my free Unreal Engine beginner course. It will teach you all the essentials. There's a link to that in the description of the video. With all of that said, let's get into the video. To get started, I'm in the Unreal Project browser, and we're going to be coding this project from complete scratch. So just select the blank template, and then give your project an appropriate name. So I'm calling this project Sky Balloon. Then, once you're happy, we can just click this Create button. Once your Unreal Engine project loads, it should look something like this. Now, when working in Unreal Engine, I normally just like to go here to the Content Drawer and just click Dock in Layout. The Content Drawer will show us a list of all of the different assets and files that we have in our Unreal Engine project. The first thing we're going to do is create a new level for our game. So to do this, I'm just going to go to my Content folder, right click and create a new folder. Just call this Levels. Then we just want to go here where it says File, select New Level, and just select a basic level. Then go Create, and this will create us a basic level with a nice sky atmosphere and a simple floor mesh. We just want to save this level, so to do that, we can just click the Save button. It will ask us where we want to save our level. Just select our Levels folder, and then I'm just going to call this level the Sky Balloon level. We can then just save this level. The next thing we're going to do is import all of the different assets that we're going to use in this game. So I'm just going to go back to my Content folder, right click and create a new folder. Just call this Assets. And then there's going to be a link in the description of the video with all of the different assets that we're going to use in this game. If you want to follow along with me, feel free to download these assets. They're completely free. So I'm just going to drag all these assets into this folder and go import. Okay, so one of the assets is going to be this balloon character who we're going to play our game as. So let's make it so we can play the game as this balloon character. To do that, I'm going to just right click and create a new folder, call this Blueprints, and then head it inside here. And then we just want to right click, go over to Blueprint class, and select a character. So a character is a type of pawn which has the ability to walk around. And if you don't know what a pawn is basically any actor that can be possessed by a controller. So we just want to select character and call this the BP_balloon. Open this up, and then we just want to go over to components and go add and look for a static mesh. So this one, and just call this balloon. Go over to the details panel here, then over to static mesh, and we just want to look for the SM_balloon. That's what I call the model, and then just go over to scale here. I found it was a bit small, so we just want to make it 2. By clicking this anchor, this will make it so when we change a value here, it will make them all the same, so it will scale it uniformly. I did find that this balloon looks a bit weird when it has shadows enabled on it. So if we just select the balloon, go over to details, and then look for cast shadow, and just leave this unchecked so that this balloon does not cast a shadow. So the reason it casts a shadow is because its face is slightly in front of the balloon, so it kind of like casts a shadow on it, which makes it look a bit weird. So we can just make it so it doesn't cast any shadows. And then for our characters, we just need to make sure that they have a camera. This is going to be how we view the game when we are playing the game as this character. So we can just go over to our BP balloon, go add, and look for a camera. And for now, we can just place this anywhere. Compile this, and then we just want to minimize this. So I want to make it so when I'm playing in this level, I start off this level as my balloon character. To do that, we need to create a game mode. The game mode will define the rules that we want to have for our game. So we can just right click, go over to Blueprint class, and select Game Mode Base. Call this the BP_Sky Balloon game mode. Now in our game mode, we can decide what character we want to start our game as. We can do that by deciding what the default pawn class is going to be. And we're going to make the default pawn class the BP balloon. Compile this and save it. So this will make it so we start the game off as our BP balloon character if we're playing in this game mode. We can then just minimize this, and then to set the game mode for a level, we can just go over to Window, select World Settings, then go over to World Settings here, and just drag and drop our game mode. And now, if we just go over to the outliner, this will show us a list of all of the different assets that we have in our level, and one of them is the player start. This is going to be where in our level the player is going to start the game. If I just click the play button, I'm going to start off my game as my balloon character in the player start. So nice, everything is working as intended. Although I don't really like the view that I have of my balloon. For this game, we're going to make it so the player has a top-down view of my balloon character, and then they're going to need to avoid obstacles. So what I'm going to do is we're going to add a camera to this level, and we're going to make it so the game is actually going to use the camera that we place in our level. To do that, we can go here where it says quickly add things to the project. That's represented by this little square and plus icon. Then we just want to look for a camera, and we want to select a camera actor. Just drag and drop this anywhere into our level. Move it up a bit, and then go here where it says select and rotate objects. And we just want to rotate this 90 degrees. So it's pointing downwards. And then in order to make it so when we start the game, we are viewing the game from this camera, just make sure it's selected. Go here and open the level blueprint. Then event begin play. This will basically fire as soon as our game starts. We're going to make it so we see the game from this camera. So make sure you have the camera selected, go over to the level blueprint, and then right click and just create a reference to the camera actor. We then just want to right click again and look for get player controller. This will get a reference to the controller that we're playing the game as, and we just want to drag off here and look for set view target with blend. The way this node will work is it will basically change the camera that we're viewing the game as. So the target is going to be our player controller, and the new view target, where we want to view our game from, we can just get our camera actor and connect this into here, and then connect from event begin play into here, compile this, minimize this, and then if I play my game, we're going to start the game from the perspective of the camera that we've placed in our level. Although, for our camera, you'll notice parts of it are black. In order to fix this, we can just stop playing our game, select the camera actor, go over to details, and just uncheck this constrain aspect ratio. This will make it so our camera will take up as much space as it can. And now if I play my game, my camera is showing me everything. I do want to kind of adjust how my balloon is looking. So if I just go over to my BP balloon, just select them, and then we just want to go over here where it says select and rotate objects, and just rotate them 90 degrees, and then 90 degrees this way. Just make sure they are facing this blue arrow. And then we just want to select the capsule and just adjust it so it fits around your balloon. So I've just adjusted my balloon so it has a capsule half height of 79 and a capsule radius of 45. And now if I were to play my game, I get a nice view of my balloon. The next thing I want to do is I want to make it so I can move my balloon character around. To do this, we need to add some controls to our game. So I'm just going to go over to my content folder, right click and create a new folder. I will call this input, and then we can head inside here, and we just want to right click and go over to input and select input mapping context. This will store a list of all of the different controls that we can have for our character in our game. Just select this and call this IMC_balloon. We then just need to right click again and go over to input and select input action. Here we can specify the types of movements that our character is going to be able to do. So I'm just going to call this input action_move. We're only going to have one control for our balloon character. All they need to do is move around. And we just want to double click and open this up. Go over to value type and change this to an axis 2D. You'll get a better understanding of this later on when we set up this control in our player character. But essentially, this will allow us to set up input for our character in 2 dimensions. So think of it like how on the Xbox game controller, it has that little thumbstick, and we can use that thumbstick to move a character in two directions, like up and down, or towards the left and towards the right. Just save this, and then go over to the IMC balloon. Here we need to add the different inputs that we want our character to be able to perform. To do this, we can go over to default key mappings, add an action mapping, just expand this, and then select the input action underscore move. Next, we need to assign all of the different buttons that we want our player character to press in order to perform the movement input action. So I want my player character to be able to press up, down, left, or right in order to move the character. So to do this, we can just select here, and then if I press the up button on my keyboard, that will make it so if the player presses the up button, that will perform the input action move. I also want to make it so the player character can press the left, right, or down button in order to move the character. So to do this, I can just click add control binding to the mapping. I'll select this one and press down. I'll press this button again. This time I'll press left, and then I'll press this one more time, and this time I'll select right. Now, for the movement input action, we're going to need to add some modifiers when the player presses the button, when they press it with the down button, the left button, or the right button. This will all make sense in just a second, but in order to do this, we're going to add some modifiers to these buttons. So if I just go over to the up button, we're going to go over to modifiers, go add, and just select the swizzle input axis value. This will make it so when we press the up button, its value is going to come from another dimension. Again, this will make sense in just a second. We want to go over to the down one and go over to modifiers and add the swizzle input axis value. And we also want to add the negate modifier. So add another one, and this time select negate. The negate modifier will basically make it so this action will have a negative value. And when we move our character down, we're going to be moving them in the opposite direction. So we want to make sure it has the negate modifier. Then we can just go over to the left one, go to modifiers and go add. When we move our character towards the left, we're going to be moving them in the opposite direction. So we also want this to have the negate modifier. Okay, we can save this, and then we're going to go over to our BP balloon. Go over to the event graph, and event begin play, we're going to add the controls for our balloon character. To do this, we can right click and look for get player controller, drag off here and look for get enhanced input local player subsystem, and we can drag off here and look for add mapping context. This will allow us to add the controls of our balloon to our balloon character. Just go here and select the controls we want to add, which is going to be the IMC balloon. Then connect from event begin play into here. I'm then just going to select all these nodes and press C to comment them, and I'm going to call this add balloon input mapping context. Okay, in some free space, just right click and then look for the input action underscore move. So we made this have a two-dimensional input. If you remember here, we changed this to an axis 2D. So if I just right click here on the action value and I go split structure pin, it's going to have a value in the X and a value in the Y. We're going to use the value in the X to make our character move towards the left and the right, and we'll use the value in the Y to make our character move up and down. Whenever the player presses the up, down, left, or right button, this trigger node is going to fire. If I just drag off here, and I look for print string, and I connect from X into here, and I just compile this. If I were to play my game, if I press the left arrow key, it's going to print string -1, and that's because we added the negate modifier. If I press the right button, then it's going to print string +1. That's because we've added no modifiers to this and just left it as default value. If I press either the up or the down button, it's going to print string nothing. And that's because if I just go back to my input mapping context balloon, for the up and the down button, I assign the swizzle input axis value modifier. That essentially means its value is only going to fire from the Y. So if I just connect from here into here, and then I were to compile this and I minimize this, if I press the up button, then it's going to print string +1, and then if I press the down button, it's going to print string -1, because both of these are using the Y input because we added the swizzle input axis modifier, and the down button is print string -1 because we added the negate modifier. So we're going to use this to help make our character move in all 4 directions. Let's just go back to our balloon character, and I can delete this and the print string. I can drag off here, and I can look for add movement input, and we just want to connect from the X into here, and then we're going to start up moving our character towards the left and towards the right. To do this, we can right click and look for get control rotation. This will get the rotation of our character, and we just want to right click here and look for split structure pin, then right click and look for get right vector. This will get the right direction of our character. Right click on this and go split structure pin, connect from X into here and from Z into here, and then from return value into the Y direction. And this will make it so we can move our character towards the left and towards the right. When we move towards the right, this value is going to be positive and it'll move our character positively in the right direction. Although when we press the left button, this value will be -1, and then it's going to make our character move negatively in the right direction, which will cause them to move left. We'll do a similar thing for making our character move up and down. I can drag off here and I can look for add movement input. I will connect from the action value Y into here, and for the Y direction, I will just copy this, paste it, and then right click and look for get forward vector. Right click on this and go split structure pin and connect from Z into here and from return value into here. Let's just comment this, move character left/right, and then I'm just going to comment this, move character up/down. Okay, we can test this out. If I compile this and I play my game, you should be able to move your balloon up, down, towards the left, and towards the right. Nice. The next thing we're going to do is I want to make it so when the balloon is moving towards the left and the right, it kind of smoothly sways in that direction. That way it just looks a bit nicer. To achieve this effect, if we open up our BPE balloon, we just want to right click in some free space and look for event tick. So the way this node works is it will basically fire every single frame. So if your game is running at 60 frames per second, this will fire 60 times. And what we're going to do is we're going to make it so our balloon is always swaying in a rotation. So to do this, I'm just going to drag in my balloon, drag off here, and look for set world rotation. Right click here and go split structure pin. Go over to the viewport, and if I just select my balloon, and I go over here where it says select and rotate objects, we are only going to be moving our balloon in the Z axis. So the Z axis is this blue axis here. And I'm going to make it so it can only sway from a minimum distance of 60 all the way to a max distance of 120. Just move this back, so the default value should be 90. And I'm just going to go back to my event graph. For the X, we can just leave this at -90, and we can just leave the Y at 0, connect from here into here. And then in order to make it so our balloon will smoothly rotate to a new value, we can just right click and look for F interp to constant and connect from this return value into Z. What this node will do is it will make it so we get a current value, which is going to be moving towards a target value, and the speed at which it moves from the current to the target value will be affected by the delta time and the interrupt speed. So for the current value, we can just drag in our balloon, drag off here, and get the world rotation of our balloon. Right click here and look for split structure pin. We only want the value in the Z. For the target value, just right click here and promote this to a variable. We can just call this target rotation. Compile this, and for the target rotation, we just want this to have a starting value of whatever your character's target rotation is. So in my case, it's just going to be 90. I know it says 89.9, but it's the same as 90. For the delta time, we can just right click and look for get world delta seconds. That's this. It's the same thing as this. We can connect from here to here. And then for the interrupt speed, this is going to be how long it takes to move from the current rotation to the target rotation. We may need to play around with this value. I'm going to make it 100 for now though. Okay. So the way we're going to update our target rotation is whenever my player character presses the button to move towards the left or the right, we are going to update this value. So I'm actually just going to right click on this action value X and promote it to a variable. Connect from here into here, here into here, and I'm just going to connect from here into here to make it a bit tardier. Then after we've made our character move, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my value of whatever I've pressed, drag off here and look for add, and I'm going to add this to my target rotation. And then I'm just going to drag off here and look for the clamp float. And the way this node will work is it will make it so the minimum value of this can be whatever is here, and the max value of this can be whatever is here. So in my case, I want this to be 60 and 120. So if, say, the value of this for some reason was 1,000, that's not going to go through here. The max value this can take is 120. So all of the values out of here will be between 60 and 120. And that's what we're going to set our target rotation to be. So I'm just going to look for set and connect from here into here and from here into here. So whenever I move, we're going to get whatever my player character has in their value X. This will either be 1 or -1. We'll add that onto our target rotation, and we've made it so it can have a min value of 60 and a max value of 120. Let's just comment this, and I'll call this handle balloon rotation. Okay, compile this, and let's test this out. If I play my game, you can see when I move towards the left, my balloon slowly rotates towards the left, and when I move towards the right, my balloon will slowly rotate towards the right. Although when the player is not pressing any button, I want the balloon to return back to its default 90-degree rotation. So to handle that, I'm going to go over to my BP balloon, and what we can do is we can just expand this input action move. It actually has a bunch of other parameters, and when the player is not pressing any key, this completed node will fire. So if the player is not moving at all, we can just drag in the target rotation and look for set, and we can just set it so that it is 90. Now if I compile this and I play my game, I can move towards the left and my balloon will rotate towards the left, although if I let go, my balloon will just be back to 90 degrees. The next thing we're going to do is add a boundary in our level. Right now, our player character can kind of move off of the screen of our game. I want to add boundaries in my game to prevent that. If I just go over to my BP balloon, in some free space, I'm just going to right click and look for add custom event. And I'm just going to call this death. We will fire this whenever we want our game to restart. We're going to add some more logic to this later on, but for now, whenever we call this custom event, I'm just going to drag off here and look for open level by name. And the level I'm going to open is going to be whatever I call this level. So I call this level sky balloon. So whenever my balloon dies, I will open the sky balloon level. We can compile this and minimize this. Next, I'm just going to go over to my blueprints folder, right click and go over to blueprint class, select an actor, and I'm just going to call this my BP_boundary. We can open this up and go over to components and go add and look for a cube. Then just select the cube, scroll down, and we're going to go to on component hit. This is going to fire when two actors are blocking one another. So when my cube's capsule collision hits the cube, this is going to fire. And what we're going to do is we're going to check the other actor that hit the cube. If I just drag off here and I cast to my BP balloon character, if it's my balloon character that hit the cube, I'm going to be able to access all of the information about my balloon character. And then I'm just going to call the death custom event, which will open up the level again. We can just go to our BP boundary, compile and save this, and then drag this somewhere into your level. Go over to select and scale objects and just create a boundary, play your game, And then if your balloon goes into it, it should restart the level. Nice. So that is working as intended. I'm just going to go over to my BB boundary, select the cube, then go over to details and look for hidden. And we just want to go to hidden in game, compile this, minimize this, and then just add 4 boundaries around your player start. Quick tip, if you select an actor in Unreal Engine, then press Alt and move it, that will quickly allow you to create a duplicate of it. That's a helpful shortcut. So I'm just going to place 4 boundaries around my level. Okay, and if I play my game, I have 4 boundaries. I can't really see them, so for now I'm actually just going to make it so they're not hidden in the game. Okay, and that is working as intended. There are multiple different ways that we can set up the boundary system, but I just figured we'd do it like this. The next thing we're going to do is add a score system. So every second that my balloon is alive in my game, we're going to increase the score that the player character has by 1. So to set this up, I'm first going to go over to my content folder, right click and create a new folder. I'm just going to call this widgets. Then I'm going to head inside here, right click and go over to user interface and select a widget blueprint. I will select the user widget and I'm going to call this the widget blueprint underscore player HUD. We can open this up and then I'm going to go over to the palette and look for a canvas panel, drag this in, and then we're going to be able to design this canvas panel and then we're going to put this on the screen of our game. For now, I'm just going to look for some text, drag this text into the top center here, and also go over to anchor and anchor this to the top center. This will help ensure that the text stays on this position on our screen. And then for the text, I'm just going to make this a 1. This is just a preview, and I'm just going to go over to font and I'm going to increase the size quite a bit. So I think a size of 100 will work pretty well. And let me just expand this. And then in the search, if we look for outline, I think this text will look better with an outline. So give this an outline of around 10. Go over here and make sure the text is a variable and just call this score. Next, we just want to go over to our graph, right click in some free space and go add custom event and just call this update score. Then we can just drag in our score text, get it, drag off here and look for set text. And we want this one, set text, text, connect from here into here and from in text into here. We can then just compile this, save it, and go back to our blueprints and open up the BP balloon. Okay, after we add the balloon controls, we can drag off here and I'm going to look for the create widget. This will allow me to create a widget blueprint. The widget blueprint I'm going to create is going to be the widget blueprint underscore player HUD. We want to right click on this and promote this to a variable and just call this the player HUD reference. And then we just want to drag off here and look for add to viewport. Now if I just compile this and I play my game, this will add my HUD to the viewport of my game. Next, every second my player character is alive, I want to increase their score by 1. So to do this, I'm just going to drag off here and then look for set timer by event. For the time, make this 1 and make sure this is looping. Right click on this return value and promote it to a variable and just call this the score event handler. Drag off this event and look for add custom event and just call this update player's score. So the way this will work is every 1 second, it's going to fire off this node because we made the time 1 and we checked looping. And what we're going to do is just create a new variable, call it the score. Make sure the variable type is an integer. And we just want to drag in the score, get it, drag off here and look for increment int. What this will do is it will increase the value of this by 1. Then we want to drag in our player HUD reference, get it, drag off here and call the update score and connect from here into here. This will convert this number into a text. We can then connect from here into here, compile this, save it, and now if I play my game, every 1 second it should update the score. Nice. So this is working correctly. We're going to add some more functionality to our score a bit later on. The next thing we're going to do is create an enemy jet which is going to constantly try and kill the player. So to create this, we can right click, go over to Blueprint class, select a character, call this the BP_jet, open this up, expand it, and then go over to components and go add, and look for a static mesh. Call this the jet, and then go over to static mesh and look for the SM_jet. Rotate it, so go here, select and rotate objects, and we just want to make it face the blue arrow. And I did find this was a bit big, so scale it to 0.7, and then just select the capsule, and we can expand the capsule radius. Okay, with the capsule component selected, scroll down and go over to on component hit, and we can drag off other actor and cast to the balloon. And if this hits the balloon, we can just drag off the balloon and call the death custom event inside of our balloon, which will restart our game. Next, to make our jet constantly move towards our player character, I'm just going to delete the nodes here, and event begin play, we can drag off here and look for set timer by event. For the time, I'm going to make this 0.5, and I'm going to make sure this is looping. And for the event, drag off here, go add custom event, and call this move to player. And then if we drag off here, look for AI move to. And for the pawn, this just needs a reference to itself. So drag off here and look for self. And then for the target actor, where we want it to move to, we can right click and look for get player character and connect from target actor into here. I'm just going to comment this, and I'm going to call this move to player, and then I'm going to comment this destroy player. Okay, let's compile this and minimize this. I will drag my jet into my level, and if I play my game, my jet is actually not going to move towards my player character. And that's because we need to add a nav mesh bounds volume to our level. This will tell the AI and Unreal Engine where it can and where it can't go. To add this, we can just go over here, where it says quickly add things to the project, go over to volumes, and look for a nav mesh bounds volume. Drag this in, and if you just press P on your keyboard, it will highlight a nav mesh bounds volume. The area in green represents the area in which your AI can go. We just want to expand this so it fills our square. Next, we also just want to go back to our BP jet and make sure it has no collision. So just select the jet, scroll down, and go over to collision presets and make it have no collision. Otherwise, the jet collision will kind of interfere with the capsule's collision. And we also want to do this for our player character as well. Select the balloon, make sure it has no collision, and compile this. Okay, so if I play my game, my jet is now moving towards my player character. The jet is actually very fast, so let's decrease its speed a bit. If we go over to character movement, go over to details and look for speed. Right now our jet speed is 600, so I'm going to reduce this to something like 400. Compile this, and now it's a lot easier for me to dodge. You may have noticed, as the jet rotates, it looks kind of weird. In order to make the jet smoothly rotate, let's go over to our BP jet, select the BP jet itself, and then in the details, look for yaw, and then just uncheck this, go over to the character movement, and look for rotation, and click this orient rotation to movement. This will make it so our jet will smoothly rotate. The rate at which the jet will rotate will be determined by this value here. So right now it's 360. The higher we make this, the faster the jet will rotate. Compile this, and now if I play my game, you'll notice the jet will smoothly rotate. So that looks a lot better, and if it hits me, my game will restart. I think I am going to move the camera slightly more up, and I may need to expand my boundaries because of this, but I think this will give the player a bit more space. Okay, so I'm happy with that. The next thing we're going to do is add some bullets which are going to randomly spawn and try and hit and kill our player character. The first thing we need to do is set up a bullet. So inside of my blueprints folder, I'm going to right click, go over to blueprint class, select an actor, and I will call this my BP_bullet. Double click and open it up. Go over to components and go add, and just add an arrow so we know the forward direction, and then go add and look for a static mesh, and just call this the bullet. Go over to the static mesh here and look for the bullet static mesh, and just rotate it so it's facing the arrow. And I did find it was a bit big, so just scale it down to like 0.5. And then in order to make our bullet move, go over to components, go add, and look for projectile movement. Okay, go over to the projectile gravity scale and change this to 0. This will make it so our projectile is not affected by gravity at all, which is what we want. Then, in order to control the speed of our projectile, we're going to use this initial speed and this max speed. I'm going to go over to my construction script. It's basically going to run this before my bullet is spawned into my game. And what we're going to do is we're going to make it so our bullet has a random speed between 100 and 1000. So the way I'm going to do that, I'm just going to right click and look for random float in range. The minimum value will be 100. The max value will be 1000. I will right click here, promote this to a variable. We can call this random speed. Connect from here into here. And then I can drag in my projectile movement component, drag off here and look for set initial speed and connect from here to here. And then look for set max speed and connect from here into here. And this will make it so my projectile will have a random speed between 100 and 1000. We can go back to our viewport, select the bullet, go add, and look for a sphere. And we want a sphere collision. And I'm just going to move this so it's a bit forwards and also a bit smaller. For our bullet, let's scroll down and also make sure it has no collision, so it's not interfering with anything. And then I'm going to select my sphere, and it's set to overlap all dynamic. And we want to go to on component begin overlap. If our bullet overlaps our balloon, so I'm going to cast to my balloon, we will make the game end. So I'm going to drag off here and look for death. I'll compile this. And if I were to drag a bullet into my level, and I play my game, I can see it moving. Nice. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to create another blueprint, which is going to randomly spawn a bunch of bullets. So I'm going to right click, go over to blueprint class, select an actor. I will call this the BP_bullet spawner. I will open it up. Go over to my event graph and event begin play. We are going to drag off here and look for the set timer by event node. I'm going to drag off the event and look for add custom event. And I'm going to call this spawn bullets in randomly. Make this looping, and then for the time, we just want to right click and look for random float in range. and this will be between 0.3 seconds and 1 second. Connect from here into the time, and then we can drag off here and look for spawn, actor from class. The actor we're going to spawn is going to be the bullet, and where we're going to spawn it, just briefly close this, and then we want to drag in our BP bullet spawner. And right now, we can see the location for my bullet spawner is minus 570, 40, and 0. What we're going to do is we're going to manipulate the Y value. We're going to make this go between a range of minus 980 to a max range of around 1000. So you just want to see what your end of your level collision value is and what the topper end value of it is. I will just place this back to the center of 0 there. We can open this up, and then I'm going to drag off the spawn transform, and we want to look for make transform, and then I'm just going to delete this. We then just want to right click on the location and go split structure pin, and for the X and the Z, we can just right click and look for get actor location. Right click and go split structure pin. We'll just get wherever we are on the X and the Z. Although for the Y, we can right click and look for random float in range. Connect from here to here, and then you want to see your range. I think it's between minus 1000 and 1000. So put that here, minus 1000 and 1000. And then for the rotation, we also want this to be random. That way each bullet doesn't just spawn straight on. We're going to make it have a random rotation between minus 30 in the Z and a max value of positive 30. I will just change this back to 0 though. Go back to my bullet spawner. We can right click here, split the structure pin, and for the Z, I'm going to right click and look for random float in range between negative 30 and positive 30. Okay, we can test this out. So let me compile this. I will delete my bullet, and I'm also just going to move my jet here for testing purposes. And I can see it is randomly spawning in bullets. And when I'm hit by one, it restarts my game. I'm also just going to despawn my bullets. So event begin play, let's have a delay. And let's say after 15 seconds, we will automatically just destroy any bullets. That way, they're not just continuously in our level. And I also think I will make the default speed of the bullets a bit faster. So min 250, max 1300. And I also think I just need to move the bullet spawner back a bit so that it spawns off screen. Okay, nice. I do think maybe I'm not spawning a lot of bullets, so what I actually am going to do is go over to my bullet spawner, drag off here and look for a sequence. First I will spawn a bullet, and then I'm going to have a branch. And then the condition is going to be random ball. This will basically randomly generate a ball. And if it's true, I will spawn in a second bullet. That way it can be a bit more hectic. Okay, nice. The next thing we're going to do is make it look like our game is taking place in the sky. So I'm just going to expand all of my boundaries. I will go over to my BB boundary and I'm going to make it so they are hidden in game. I'm also just going to select the floor and I'm going to make this hidden in game. We need the floor because our character actually isn't flying. They're moving across the surface of this floor. So we actually can't delete this. Otherwise our player character will fall down. That's why we still need this floor. So in the search, just look for hidden and make this actor hidden in game. That way we just have a blue background and it kind of looks like our balloon is in the sky. Although in the sky, there are clouds. So we're going to create a cool material effect which makes it look like there are some clouds in our sky. To do this, just go over to your content folder, right click and create a new folder, call it materials, head inside here, right click and go over to material, call this the m_cloud. Open this up, and we're going to use this material in a widget. So if you just go over to the material, select it, and go over to material domain, select user interface, because we're going to use this in a widget. And then in the assets folder, there's actually a texture. It's a noise texture of some clouds, and we're going to make this appear on our screen. So just go over to the mCloud material, right click and look for texture, sample, and then go over to texture and select the tCloud noise texture. And we're going to make this texture move. So to do that, right click and look for panner, connect from here into here, and from RGB into here. And then for the speed, I found 0.5 in the X and 0.5 in the Y. Works pretty well. So we're going to make this effect basically appear on our screen. We want to play around with the opacity of this. If I just go over to the tCloud noise texture, materials are made up of 4 channels: a red channel, a green channel, a blue channel, and an alpha channel. The alpha channel controls the opacity, although there's no information in the alpha channel. If I just go over to the red channel, there is information in the red channel. And what you should know is areas in black basically represent a value of 0, and areas in white basically represent a value of 1. If I just go back to my mCloud material, select the material, go over to blend mode and change this to translucent. So if the opacity was 1, that would mean I'd only be able to see this image on my screen. I'll actually show you what I mean. So I'm going to leave the opacity at 1, and we can then just minimize this, go over to our blueprints, over to the widgets, open up the widget blueprint player HUD, and in the palette, I'm going to look for an image, drag this in, go over to anchors and select this one in the bottom right, change the offset to 0 in all the values. This will stretch the image across the whole of the screen, and then go over to brush and select the m_cloud. Compile it, and if I play my game, I can't really see anything. That's because the opacity of my material is 1. If I change this to 0, then I'm not going to be able to see the material at all. So we're going to use this red channel, and this will make the areas which are black not visible and the areas which are white visible. Although, I just want to drag off here, and I want to look for the clamp, and I'm going to make the max value 0.5. So even if an area is fully opaque, because I'm playing it through this clamp node, the max opacity of it will be 0.5. Then I'm going to connect this into here, go apply, and if I play my game, it kind of looks like my balloon is in the sky and that those white things are clouds. Pretty cool. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to add the jet back to our box so that our game is a bit more challenging. And I want to save the score that the player character gets when they die. So instead of just restarting the level when the player dies, we will display the current score that the player character got and whether or not they beat their high score. So I'm going to go over to my widgets, right click, go over to a user interface, select widget blueprint, and select the user widget. And I'm going to call this the widget blueprint underscore end score. We can open this up, go over to the palette and look for a canvas panel, drag this in, and then look for a vertical box, drag this in, expand it a bit, and anchor this to the center, and then look for a text and drag 2 text into the vertical box. With both texts selected, so hold shift, let's just increase the size of them, so it's like, let's say 50. And then for the second text, I'm just going to make this blue. And then for both text, so I'm going to hold shift, I'm going to look for outline, and I'm going to give them an outline of 10. And then for the second text, because I want there to be a bit of space between the 2 text blocks, let's go over to top and add a padding of 150. and I will also just expand this. And I'm going to center both text, so I'm going to select both of them and then go here. That way the text are in the center. And let me just reposition this. Okay, select the first text block and just call this the current score. Make sure it is a variable. Then select the second text block and call this the high score. And again, make sure this is a variable. Go over to the graph and then event construct. We can get the current score, get it, drag off here and look for set text. And we want this one, set text text, connect from here to here. Then right click and look for append. And we want this one, append string, connect from here into here. And then we are going to make this a you lasted. Inside of B, we're going to specify the amount of seconds the player character lasted. Just create a new variable and just call this current score int. Change this to be a integer and make sure it's instance editable and expose on spawn. Drag this in and connect this into here. Then add another pin and then say seconds. So the player will get a message saying you lasted whatever their current score was, and then seconds. We can drag in the high score, get it, drag off here, and look for set text, text, connect from here into here. We can copy this, and then I'm going to make this say your record. And then inside of B, we can just select our current score, right click and go duplicate. Call this the high score int and just connect from here into here and from here into here. Compile this and save it. Next, we are just going to create a save game, which is going to save the high score of our player character. So to create this, we can right click, go over to Blueprint class, go over to all classes, and then look for a save game. We can use this to save data in Unreal Engine. Select it and call this the VP_save. Open this up, go over to variables and add a new variable. We can call this the high score. Make sure it is a integer. Compile this and then go back to our BP balloon, over to the event graph. And let me just select all these nodes, move them down, and then I'm going to just drag off here and look for a sequence. So first I am going to create a player HUD. Let me just comment this, create player HUD, and then I'm just going to comment this, update score, and we'll add a comment to this later. We're not finished with this. So after we create the HUD and update the player character score, we are going to create a save game for them if the player character doesn't have a save game. So I can drag off here and I can look for does save game exist. So I'm going to see if a save game under the slot name score exists. I will have a branch. If it doesn't exist, if I don't have a save called score, then I will drag off false and look for create save game object. The save game object we are going to create is going to be the BP save that we set up earlier. And we just want to right click on this and promote this to a variable and call this the save reference. If when we load this up, the player character does have a save game called score, we can drag off true and look for load game from slot. The slot is going to be score because that's what we've called our save game. It's score. And then we can just drag off here and look for cast to BP_save. And then we just want to get the save reference and set it. And this will allow us to reference our save game. There's one thing I forgot. So if the player character doesn't have a save, we create a save game object and then we store this as a reference. Although we just need to drag off here and look for save game to slot. And then we are going to save this to a slot called score. And what this will do is, in our Unreal Engine project, it's going to create a file called score. And then say we load this up again. If we do have a save game under the name score, we will load it up. and this will allow us to reference any information inside of here. So I'm just going to comment this, create/load save. Okay, so when my player character dies, I actually want to just go over to my widgets and over to my player HUD, and I want to stop displaying the score. So I'm just going to right click, look for add custom event. I'll call this hide score. I will then get the score, drag off here and look for set visibility and set it so it's hidden. And then just compile and save this. Go back to the BP balloon, and whenever our player character dies, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stop our score event from being updated. So we created a reference to our update player score event. It's this. In order to stop this event from running, we can drag in the score event handler, get it, drag off here and look for clear and invalidate timer by handle. This will stop this event from running. I then just want to drag in my player HUD reference, get it, and call the hide score. This will hide my score from the screen. I then just want to drag off here and look for create widget. The widget I'm going to create is going to be the end score. Because I made both of these variables instance editable and expose on spawn, I can determine the value of them when they are created. And for this, I want to just drag in my score, get it, and connect this into the current score. This will display the current score that the player character has. And then to display the high score, we can drag in the save reference, get it, drag off here, and we can get the high score. Before we actually show this on our screen though, we should update the player character's high score if they've achieved a new high score. So to do that, we can just get our score, and we can drag in our save reference again and get the high score. And if the score is ever greater than the high score, we will have a branch. So if you hold B and left click, that will quickly create a branch. And if this is true, we can just get our save reference, get it, drag off here and look for set high score. And we'll set the high score to be whatever our score is. And when this happens, we just want to drag off our save reference and look for save game to slot. And we want to save this. We're going to save this to our slot called score. This should be whatever you called your save game. So I called mine score. We can then just connect from true into here and this into here. And this will save this for us. Let me just select these, move them backwards a bit. And then we will create the widget. If this isn't true, we will still create our widget. And then we just want to add this to our viewport. And then whenever the player dies, we just want to disable their input. So I'm just going to right click and look for get player controller and look for disable input. And we actually just want to connect from the player controller into here. We can right click on the target and break the link. And then when the player dies, we are just going to hide the balloon. So get it, drag off here and look for set visibility. Connect from here into here. And we can compile and test this out. So save this. Let's play our game. If I die, it says you lasted 1 second, your record 1 second. So when the player character dies, we are going to allow them to restart the game. So let's just go back to our palette, look for a button, drag this button into the vertical box, go here to center align this horizontally, and I'm just going to add some padding to the top of this of 150. I'm going to go Control C here, so copy the text and paste it inside of the button. And we can just make this text say retry. I think I will have a slightly less thick outline on this because it looks a bit weird. So we can reduce the outline to like 5, actually 4. And if I just go over to events, I actually need to just go over to this button. I'll call this my retry button. And we need to make sure it is a variable. Then we can access some events. And when the player clicks on this button, we can drag off here and look for open level by name. and the level we will open will be called Sky Balloon. And just so that my player character can click and stuff, whenever we show this widget, we can right click and look for Get Player Controller, drag off here and look for Set Show Mouse Cursor. Make sure this is checked. This will make it so we can see our mouse cursor. And then in order to interact and click with UI elements, we just want to drag off here and look for Set Input Mode UI Only. Then connect from here into here and from here into here. I will delete this event and we can compile this. And then I just want to go over to my BP balloon. Okay, I actually think everything's good. If I play my game, when I die, it says you lasted 1 second, and then I can click this retry button. If I click it, it restarts my game. Although when I restart my game, I can see my mouse cursor, and then I actually can't move my player character. That's because if I just open this up, when we tell the game that we want to be in input mode UI only, we can't move our player character. So if I just go back to my BP balloon, event begin play, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and look for Get Player Controller. We can drag off here and look for Set Show Mouse Cursor. Leave this unchecked. This will make it hide the mouse cursor. Then we can drag off here and look for Set Input Mode Game Only. This will make it so we can control and move our player character. Connect from here to here. And then I'm just going to comment this. Hide mouse and update input mode. Okay, let me compile this and let me try and last more than 1 second. Okay, so I lasted 2 seconds. Okay, I must have lasted 3 seconds because it said you lasted 3 seconds, your record 3 seconds. If I click retry, that time I lasted 1 second and it shows me that my record was 3 seconds. Okay, nice. I do think my outline may be a bit thick, so you may want to make yours less thick. And when my player character dies, I just want to hide the jet and the bullets. So to do this, I'm going to go over to my widget blueprint end score. And this is kind of expensive to run, although our game's kind of small, so we're going to do it. In order to stop the jet and remove all of the bullets, I can drag off here and I can look for Get Actor of Class, and this will get the first actor in the world of my level. So I only have 1 jet and 1 bullet spawner. So if I look for bullet spawner, this will allow me to reference the first bullet spawner in my level, and I can drag off here and look for destroy actor. That will destroy it, and then I can just drag off here and look for Get Actor of Class. This time I will select the jet, and then I will just destroy that actor. Let's compile this, play our game. When I die, it will remove my jet and stop my bullet spawner. Okay, nice. Next, I want to add some more polish to my game by adding some particle effects and some sound effects. So let's go over how to do that. To add some particle effects, I am just going to go over to my content, right click, create a new folder, and I'm going to call this Niagara. Open this up, and then we can right click, and to create a particle effect, select Niagara system. And then what we can do, we're not going to create a particle from scratch because that can be quite a lot. There are some templates we can use. Just select directional burst. This is just a particle effect of a burst effect. We want to create this, and we can call this Niagara system underscore balloon pop. We are going to play this particle effect whenever the player character dies. So you can see it there. Although I just want to adjust it a bit. So there are a couple of things we're going to do. First of all, just remove this scale color. Go over to particle update and go color. And just select this one. And we want to change the color to be yellow because our balloon is yellow. So I'm just going to move this around here. Next, go over to initialize particle. And right now we can see the particle effects are set to be a random non-uniform size between 2 and 6 in the X and Y and 3 and 14. So I want my particle to be a bit bigger. So I'm just going to multiply all of these values by 3. So I'm going to make this 6. So the minimum size my particle can be is 6 by 18. and the max size my particle can be is 9 by 42. As you can see, that's made my particle a lot bigger. So right now my particle is kind of dispersing in a cone shape. If we just go over here where it says add velocity, the velocity mode is in cone, so it kind of moves like it's exploding from a cone. I want to change this to from point, and as you can see, that's kind of made my particle a bit more dispersed. It's kind of moving from a central point, and I am happy with that. So we can just save this, minimize this, and then go over to our balloon. And whenever our character dies, we just want to drag off here and look for do once. This will ensure all of these events can only happen once. And when my player dies, we can just get the balloon, and we're going to get the world location of the balloon. And then we can just drag off here and look for spawn, system, at location. The system we're going to spawn, I typed in spawn emitter at location. We want to drag off here and look for spawn, system. So this one, spawn system at location. Emitter is the old particle effect system. We want the spawn system at location. And we just want to select the balloon pop. Where we will spawn it, we can connect from here into here. I can delete this. If I compile this, if I play my game, when I die, the balloon shows a popping particle effect, which I think looks a lot better. Next, to finally polish this all up, we're going to add some sound effects. So there actually is a folder called sounds. That is just some background wind sound effect that I want to play in my game. I also have two of them, so what we're going to do is we're going to make it so it randomly loops between playing these two sound effects. To do that, we can just select both of these, hold shift, right click, scroll down and go create sound cue single. Open this up, and if I just go play cue, it's going to randomly play one of these two sounds. We just want to drag off here and look for loop, and we want this one looping, and this will make it so it kind of loops these sounds forever. We can save this, and I'm just going to drag this into my level, and now there's a background sound effect. I have this balloon pop, and there's actually meant to be a shooting sound effect, so let me just quickly add that to my project. Okay, so I've done that. We will play the balloon pop whenever the player dies, and we'll play the bullet whenever we spawn in a bullet. So let me just go over to blueprints, to the balloon. Whenever we die, I will just look for spawn, sound, at location. The location will be wherever my balloon is. The sound will be the balloon pop. We can compile this and save it. Then I will just go over to my BP bullet, over to the event graph, event begin play. We can drag off here and look for spawn sound. Actually, for the bullet, so the bullet doesn't sound the same every time, because if I just go over to sounds, if I played it, the bullet will sound the same every time. Just right click on this, scroll down and go create sound cue, open this up, and then we can just drag in this modulate node, connect from here to here, and from here to here. And this modulator node will make it so the sound effect, each time it's played, will have a random pitch between these two values and a random volume between these two values. That way it doesn't sound the same every single time. Let's just go back to our blueprints and to the bullet, and event begin play. We can look for play sound at location. The sound will be the bullet, and we will play this wherever our bullet is. So I will drag in my bullet, drag off here and look for get world location, connect from here into location, compile this, and if I play my game now, there are a lot of bullets. Let me just remove that so you can hear me speak. But we have our background sound, we have our balloon pop sound, we have a simple save system, And we have successfully recreated this game. Okay, and then for some final touches, I have just gone back to my widget blueprint end score, and I have reduced the outline around both of these texts, and I've also added a spacebar after you last did and before seconds, and I've added a spacebar to your record, and I've also added a spacebar before here. And then just so that I can preview this game on a full screen, I've gone here and I've gone to Play Editor Window. This will create a new window whenever I play my game. Let me just expand it a bit. I'm going to turn off my speakers. And now I have my simple game. The jet will chase me. If I die, I explode. It will show me my score. I have a balloon character that I can control. I'm not really doing very well. I have my balloon. I can move it through the sky. So with that, we have created our simple game. I hope you have learnt something. And then one more thing, you just want to make it so wherever your bullet spawner is, so my bullet spawner starts on location 0, make sure your player start also starts on that location. That way your player is spawning on the same layer as the bullets. Okay, that's all for the video. Don't forget to check out my free and premium Unreal Engine courses. Links to those can be found in the description of the video. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!